science professor at Valdosta State University, an expert on third parties in U.S. politics. Bernard, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Now, no third-party candidate has ever received more than 19% of the vote. Why do these candidates continue to run even though they may not win the election?
Well, their job really in American politics, their job isn't actually to win. Their job is to push forward issues that aren't being dealt with by the major candidates. I would refer to it as being spoiling with a purpose. In other words, or at least disrupting with a purpose, forcing issues into the discussion that aren't already there. And so if one is looking for another candidate who's going to win, it is actually not going to happen in American politics, and it would be a very bad waste of everybody's time if someone actually is trying to do that.
Now, Robert F. Kennedy is receiving more support than other third-party candidates. He was granted ballot access in the state of Michigan. Could that potentially lead to Kennedy qualifying in other states, especially like key battleground states like Wisconsin?
I fully expect Kennedy to get onto virtually all, if not all, 50 state ballots. Most candidates with his third-party candidates with his resources were actually able to get onto most of the ballots. Perot certainly did it. A number of the other major candidates did it over the last few decades. So you should expect that Kennedy will be there. I'm not sure about Cornel West. Maybe, but he has fewer resources than Kennedy does.
Now, during Wisconsin's April 2nd primary, we saw more than 16% of votes cast for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. Both of them had already dropped out of the race prior to the election. On the Democratic side, nearly 48,000 people voted uninstructed, part of a larger movement to challenge President Biden on his handling of the war in Gaza. Between former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden, who stands to lose more votes from Kennedy's third-party candidacy?
Well, the truth of the matter is that there's no way to know who's in greater danger. But we also don't know how much Kennedy is going to be able to maintain this level of support. The first problem is that support for third-party candidates often drops as you move to the election. But there's a second issue, and the way to frame this is to understand that the way third parties are actually successful is to find some underrepresented group or disenchanted group and find some galvanizing issues. The third party doesn't have to invent them. They're usually things that are bubbling up already. Focus in on that, produce themes based on that. In a sense, weaponize it in that they're bringing it into the election. They're producing pressure based on this. The problem for RFK is that he doesn't have any clear galvanizing issues or any themes. He seems to be all over the place on major issues. He's consistent on conspiracies for vaccines, but on the other hand, he doesn't seem to think that global climate change is a scientific conspiracy. He's avoiding the issue of abortion since he's trying to pull in so many voters, even though this is one of the major issues. And the Gaza crisis is a huge galvanizing issue for many progressive voters. But Kennedy is avoiding this issue, or he's actually going more on a very pro-Israeli side. So it's really not clear what voters he is going to pull in. And so it's not clear if he's going to be one of the major candidates, third-party candidates in the end anyway.
So around your point that Kennedy's is not displaying key issues on his campaign trail, some people have made claims that he could potentially be a surrogate for President Trump's campaign. Could that potentially be a possibility here?
All of these are possibilities, but it's not as likely as I think Democrats fear. I'm basing this on the historical patterns. I think a lot of the Democrats are looking closely at polling results, but polling results are actually very much inaccurate this far out, especially when we're talking about third parties. If he's not having a galvanizing theme, it's unlikely. I don't know. For example, it's not clear how he would pull more votes from the Democratic side if he's not pressing issues that the Democrats actually are focusing on. The I should say the progressives are focusing on. And the other thing to know about this is the states where this is most important. The third party vote, if we look back at the last election, was actually probably smaller than it was in some states where they wasn't as competitive. So we're talking basically a 1.5% vote that went to the Libertarians and the Greens and other third parties in 2024, and that was splitting between these different parties. And so it's not always clear who is going to wind up being hurt. I think the Democrats think that all third party votes are coming from their side. Often these are people who wouldn't have voted in the first place, but then come out to the polls. And so, again, it's very hard to say whether or not there'll be any impact on the final vote count.
Thank you so much for your time, Bernard.
Well, that is it for this edition of Capital City Sunday. Thanks so much for joining us, and a special thanks to political reporter Darielle Fair for her contributions this week. If you have any interview suggestions or questions for the show, feel free to email me. But for now, we'll see you back here next week. Same time, same place.